Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Saturdays with Tara Hangout on Air. I'm Mary Beth at the Law of Attraction Club, and we're on the web at the loaclub.com. On these Hangouts, we collaborate with our friends Tara. This Hangout is the summary of our theme for the week and continues on our member conference line. Today's topic is, who maintains your world? You do. Choose what to change and be diligent. You can get invites to our open calls, which we offer periodically, and our powerful free letting go process by going to the loaclub.com. So now we're going to welcome Robin and Tara.
Welcome back to our discussions. At the heart of most of our interactions with you lies the following question. How can I create something different in my life? Answer, make a new decision. Which leads to, how do I make my new decision stick? Answer, get into alignment with it. Which leads to, what is alignment? Answer, when all levels of you are in sync. Which leads to, how do I get all levels of me in sync? And that's the question we'll be exploring here today. Let's make our usual disclaimer here. As we explore, we're going to be using so-called real-world examples from this one's world. And it may sound like we're assuming that your world and his world are the same. Well, they're not. They're going to be similar in many respects, given that you're intersecting with him and us in this way. But as we talk through this with you, we do not want to reinforce the idea that you're all creating identically. These examples serve only as ways of thinking about who you are. Your mileage may vary. On our Thursday call through Rachel last week, as we were going through the process where you change your past to change your present, this one noticed how much of his everyday present moment thinking was reaffirming things in his world that are out of line with what he wants. So today we'll also be exploring the ways in which you somewhat consciously, somewhat subconsciously maintain things as you do not want them to be. Then we'll look at being clear about what you want to change, and then being diligent and disciplined as you create something new. Let's start by exploring the idea that you, the conscious thinking awareness that is engaged with us here, is in charge of everything. That you are the decider in chief. That you are the author of the screenplay of the movie of your life on Earth. Does that mean you're consciously making all of the day by day, hour by hour, and second by second decisions? Well, in fact, you're making almost none of them. Because there's much more to you than just you, the conscious thinker. There's your superconscious, in which we're including your subconscious and every higher self part of you, linking all the way back to the collective consciousness of all that is. All of that superconscious is relevant here because everything you experience, the physical you and the physical world and non-physical worlds around you, everything you experience is a match to the sum of all those components. It's a mirror of the total you. To get an idea of how it all works, let's start by exploring the subconscious, because that's the part that's closest to you, and it will serve to illustrate how these different parts of you are involved. And let's begin by recognizing three things. Firstly, there are no fixed boundaries between the conscious you and the subconscious you. You can step consciously into that subconscious realm if you want to. Let's look at some examples here with varying degrees of difficulty. Stop breathing for 1 second. Until we said that, your subconscious was breathing you, but you can override that. Try walking to the door and back. And notice that while it's now breathing you again, it's also balancing you on 2 legs and walking you and choosing where to put your feet. You could override those choices, not all of them at once, but on any one thing you can push that boundary aside and observe and control things. Secondly, why not all of them at once? Because of the shape of the consciousness you have chosen for this game. The subconscious you processes things 1,000 times faster than the conscious you. Just for a moment here, notice how much data you get deluged with every second. All the things your eyes see, but you don't consciously notice. All the things you hear and feel, but don't notice. You don't notice them because you've trained your subconscious to ignore, until, wait, that's important. When that particular thing happens, pass control back to me. All of those decisions it makes for you. If it didn't, you couldn't walk or talk or drive a car or ride a bike. Practically speaking, you would be unable to function. Thirdly, all the thousands of second-by-second decisions your subconscious makes are delegated decisions. You made a choice and then said, in future, follow that choice. And it does. You trained it to walk and it walks you. You trained it to talk and it talks you. You trained it to ride a bike and to drive a car, and it rides the bike and drives the car. You programmed it. We'll go into this in more detail shortly in our longer discussion, but let's briefly look at some examples here of making changes to those programs to get some insight into just how easy or difficult those changes can be. This one once saw a documentary about a bicycle in which the steering had been reversed by the insertion of a gear between the handle and the front wheel. Turning the handlebars caused the wheel to turn in the opposite direction. The creator of this bicycle then set out to learn to ride it. It took him 8 months. To understand what's going on here, it's important to recognize that he already knew consciously how to do it, even as you did when you learned to drive a car. What takes time is training the subconscious. In the case of the bicycle, because of the speed with which you need to interact to maintain balance, it can't be done consciously. It has to be a subconscious process. Let's consider the example of someone flying from the USA to London, renting a car and being required to drive on the other side of the street. If there was nothing about this that your subconscious knew how to do, it would be practically impossible. But most of the driving decisions remain as they always were. There were just some very key ones, of course, for which you need to override what you know and do it differently. It can be done, but until you've retrained your subconscious, it takes all of your conscious focus to achieve it. Are you beginning to see how you and your subconscious are always connected and interacting? Do you get a sense of the sorts of decisions it makes for you every second? Can you see that there is no solid boundary between you and it? It is a swirling dance between those two components of you. And yet you are ultimately in charge. It is your servant. Now let's switch from just including the subconscious, because this dance includes you at all levels. This non-stop connection and interaction is with all of your superconscious. Take a little time out here and now to let that sink in. Let yourself be a little in awe of the enormity of who you are. So now let's get to our original question. You make a new choice. How do you get all levels of you in sync? As we've seen in relation to doing physical things, the degree of difficulty of overriding your subconscious varies by the nature of the physical task. Riding the reverse bicycle on a 1 to 10 scale is, let's say, a 10. The London car driving is, let's say, a 7. The hold your breath for 1 second exercise is a 1. The difficulty of making changes in the bigger picture, in which physicalness is just one aspect, is also going to vary by what you want to change. The factors are: how long have you been practicing the old belief? And how important to you is the change you want to make? In other words, how committed are you? If you tried the reverse bike and couldn't do it, chances are you would not be committed enough to practice for 8 months. If you're seeking to drive that rental car in London, the chances are your commitment is very strong. Here are the important things to remember. As with your subconscious and physical things, you can think of all the decisions that are being made beyond the horizon of your conscious thought as delegated decisions. In other words, there is no body and no entity making decisions for you that you have not made for yourself. There is nothing you cannot be, do, or have, and nothing you cannot change. As we said when we started, you are the decider in chief. We want you to acknowledge that here and now, to yourself, acknowledge that this is the foundation and everything builds from that foundation. When you woke up this morning, the world that wrapped itself around you required no focus, energy, or attention. It was there immediately because it's a match to the totality of you. You and it are defined by that tapestry of expectations you've already woven. Ask yourself, what is there about it that you want to change? What are your new desires? Then ask yourself, how practiced is the old belief? Another way of asking this same question is, how do I feel when I choose to expect this new thing about me and my world? Then comes, are you committed to change? If yes, then set that change process in motion. be aware of how you feel. Stay on course. By law of attraction, the shape of you is defined by your desires and chosen beliefs, and the shape of everything you experience is a match to that. There can be nothing external to you making decisions about that. It is simply like attracts like. What looks back at you when you gaze into the mirror of life is a true reflection of you. You and your context are inseparable. We and our context are inseparable. There is nothing in all that is, and that does not follow this absolute principle. Now let's get back to that idea we introduced at the start. The subtle ways in which you somewhat consciously, somewhat subconsciously maintain things as you do not want them to be. All of your life you've trained yourself to be realistic about assessing likelihoods. You make belief choices about the probability of this or that happening, or how that other person is going to show up in your world. And then we come along and give you our perspective on things, and it's an upside down story. It's a story that says what you choose to believe becomes. So in this version of reality, let's think about ways in which you can be diligent and disciplined and create different outcomes in your world. In that world of yours, there'll be many things you've somewhat consciously or somewhat subconsciously decided are not going to go your way. Perhaps you applied for something and after a certain time you didn't hear back. Fleetingly, perhaps, you consciously think, oh, well, that's probably not going to happen. And that fleeting thought carries over into your subconscious tapestry of expectations and reinforces the improbability of the idea that's already there. Here's where the diligent part, the awareness part, comes in. We're encouraging you to begin noticing those fleeting thoughts. Those fleeting thoughts are where your decisions are being made and your world is being created. Those fleeting thoughts are your opportunity for change. Focus on change takes diligence and discipline. So now let's get to the discipline part. If it's your desire to begin to create more of what you want, and it is for all of you because that's what you came here for, then you need to step more authoritatively into this game of yours. At the point of that fleeting awareness, stop. You can't snatch back that thought, but you can stop right there and then and practice a little opposite thinking. You can do a quick letting go process or something similar. At your essence, you need to say right there and then no to all that negative thinking. Right there and then, you need to make a positive movement in the force. Once you begin to be diligent, you build up an ongoing and ever-present awareness of not feeling good. The better you get, the more fun you have with it, and the better you get. So, take some time right now. Think of an example of something you've decided is probably not going your way. There'll be plenty of them to choose from. Pick one. Now, while you're thinking about it, acknowledge to yourself that the probabilities at play here are what you have created them to be. Just let the enormity of that sink in. The world didn't decide them. You decided them. Now, make a new choice about it. Then, let yourself feel the pleasure of that new outcome. Then, let yourself generally feel the pleasure of creating new things. If you've chosen to believe some things are hard, they will be. If you've chosen to believe in limits, they will appear and they will limit you. If you've chosen to believe something external to you is making the decisions about you, then you will create an impoverished existence that matches that choice. If you are making choices like these, and you seek further to understand all the hows and whys, the story you weave will start to look like complexity built on complexity. Down that road, there are no easy answers. We say, pick a new road. Picking a new road is sometimes a huge decision. But that huge decision must include diligence and discipline. Because ultimately it means catching yourself in those innumerable fleeting moments and making innumerable new choices. So, we've talked today of some heavy sounding things, diligence and discipline. So now let's finish up here by taking our own advice and being a little easy with all of this. Lighten up. Remember to have fun. It's fun to be in a world in which what you choose to believe becomes what you experience. Phooey to all of that complex stuff and all that hard stuff. At the core of it all is simplicity itself. And when you get that, no matter how complex a story you want to weave, you are always able to bring yourself back to the reality that there is no separation between you and your tapestry and your superconscious. We are enjoying beyond what words can express, being with you on this fabulous journey, and we look forward to your comments and questions.
This Hangout on Air was the summary of our theme for the week. We do 3 live calls a week with Q&A for our members on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. You can become a member by going to the loaclub.com/join. And this Hangout on Air was just one of many examples of the fantastic work, the fantastic information, so to speak, that comes through our channels. And so we really recommend that if you want to be part of this, that you join the loaclub.com/join and come along and play with us. All right, our longer discussion continues now with Q&A on our member conference line. So back over.